The Paula Show is on. The Paula Show. Come on, one and all. I extend an invitation to the Paula Show. Join in the conversation. Transforming behavior, recognizing our Savior, overcoming hurdles, achieving dreams. Together we can succeed.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Paula Show. Tonight we're speaking with Magistrate Conliffe Clark. It's going to be a very interesting evening. We're speaking not only about the law, but copyrights, trademarks, and patents. So, John has a daughter, and he had a great idea for his daughter to make some money over the summer. So he decided to call her business Just Did It. And obviously, this is an offshoot of Nike's Just Do It. His daughter was going to sell t-shirts. Well, instead of using the word Nike, he was going to use the word Mike. So it would be Mike Just Did It. Of course Nike heard about the business. And guess what Nike did? They sued him. Well, interesting turn of events. Mike won his case. The judge said, a judge like this, it's parody, yes, as opposed to infringement. I don't claim to be learned about the law, but I personally think that was a little bit unfair. But we'll be returning on the Paula Show. Thank you for staying with us. It's a commercial break. We'll be right back. Thank you for staying with us on the Paula Show. Remember to watch the Paula Show via CTV Channel 2 on Tuesday nights at 9, and Sundays there's a rebroadcast at 1 in the afternoon. The Paula Show inspires, entertains, and transforms behavior. Tonight on set we have with us Magistrate Conliffe Clark.
Good night again.
Good night. Intellectual property. I noticed there are three components: patents, copyrights, and trademarks. Are there any more?
Yes.
That we should be concerned about?
The way to look at intellectual property is that it's split into two categories.
Oh, two.
The two categories are industrial property and copyright. Copyright is a category all to itself.
Okay.
Industrial property are basically things that generate from the mind. Intellectual property is exactly what it sounds like. It's property that comes from the intellect. So things that come from your imagination. So trademark, a logo that you may have to represent a product. There's also something called industrial design, the shape and the circumstances of how it looks that connotes a particular product.
We're going to expand on that as we go
We will.
through the evening.
We will. There's also geographical indication, which shows where a product would have come from, which connotes a certain kind of quality. And those kind of things are called industrial property because they're in the industry. Whereas copyright is done for the work itself. Copyright is all about the artistic circumstance or the literary circumstance.
It is said that a copyright provides exclusive rights to creative individuals for the protection of their literary or artistic productions.
Yes.
You just mentioned that. But it sounds to me like the material for copyright has to be tangible.
Yeah, yes and no. Copyright has to be what is called fixed. Fixed means it must be in a permanent form. So it not necessarily
Written
has
or
to
recorded?
it has to be written or recorded, that sculpture has to be shaped, that painting has to be painted. So once it is something that is done, even if it is unfinished, once it is something that is permanently recorded or permanently in a specific state, then it's considered fixed and you can have the copyright in that article.
So you can't copyright an idea then?
You cannot copyright an idea. You cannot copyright an idea, you cannot copyright a process, and you cannot copyright a mathematical method.
Our teachers or professors in colleges, they print a bunch of information and share it with us for homework or assignments, whatever the case is. That's not a copyright infringement?
The best answer for that is that it depends. There is such a thing called reprographic rights.
Reprographic rights.
Reprographic rights is the right in photocopying. Yes, people. Photocopying there needs to be the payment of royalties with reference to a certain amount of photocopying with reference to this.
So there's a hymn
Yes,
from the Methodist hymn book,
that's right.
and we decide that we want to copy 100 pieces
Yes,
for a large choir.
yes.
That's a problem?
It is a problem depending on the use. If said choir is charging a fee at the door for you to come in and listen to said choir needs to pay the person who wrote those lyrics, because that
But the
person...
person is dead, long time, 18 something.
Wait, hold
17
on, hold on. There's a quirk to that as well, because copyright lasts for, in Antigua and Barbuda, for 50 years after the creator has died.
Well, listen, those creators have died over a century ago.
I give you an example. Only a few years ago, there were two little old ladies that were still collecting the copyright for the song Happy Birthday,
Happy birthday.
because their father had written it. That has since gone, but what happens afterwards is that it falls into what is called the public domain. And
Or
then,
not to their children?
no, after the 50 years has
After the
passed.
50 years.
And then it falls within the public domain. That 50 years also can be extended by the specific country. Because in America, they've recently expanded that 50 years to 70 years, as they have in the US and the EU.
So
For-
the laws change across geography.
Yes, yes. However, if you are a signatory to copyright treaties, the Berne Treaty, etc., you must treat all copyright like you treat your copyright. So, an Antiguan who has a song will get a longer period of protection in America than they would necessarily get here.
So-
However, don't worry, we have made applications to increase the amount of years that Antiguan has done that. And a new bill is actually before the Attorney General
Praise the
currently.
Lord. So it won't be 50 years now, it would be what, about 95?
Well, the only place that has a length of time that long, I think, is Ethiopia, which has a time period of 99 years.
I like Ethiopia. Clap for Ethiopia. But then, by the same token, it's also said that if you're reporting, if you're critiquing, if you're providing feedback,
Yes.
it's okay to produce the document in large amount.
Yes, it falls within the same fair use doctrine.
Yeah, fair use doctrine.
If you are reporting on something, for let's say in the media, that certain things have happened and you're using something which is copyrighted by an individual in order to inform the public or in order for news purposes or media purposes. Media in the sense of awareness, etc. Not media in the sense of a production.
Even though we're purchasing the paper.
Even though you're purchasing the paper, it is a circumstance that is protected because, remember, freedom of the press is a constitutional right.
Oh boy, this copyright thing had me just really, it's complicated. But let me return to a point that you made before. Remember he said that if it's a concert and we're paying an entrance fee, then we ought to pay copyright charges to whomsoever should receive those charges.
Yeah.
But, so you would consider that maybe commercial.
Yes.
But then I also read that if it's not for profit,
Yes.
it's okay
Yes,
to an extent.
to an extent. I tell you why. There are two rights in copyright. There's the economic right, which is exactly how it sounds. That is the right to make your money
To
with
make
reference
money.
to that. There is also the moral right. Now, the moral right is also split into two categories. The moral right is the right to be known as the individual or recognized as the individual who did it, as well as the right to be able to control the manner in which it is used. Bob Marley is not going to want one of his songs being used in a bacon commercial, for example.
Yes,
or
because
being
he didn't eat
used
pork.
or being used with reference to circumstances that in the Rastafarian culture would be considered immoral.
Right.
So you have to be able to determine the circumstances within which
Even though he has
material is
passed
to be
the
used,
circumstances in which he would have been comfortable.
would be controlled by his children.
But I'm going someplace.
Okay.
You said commercial
So you have an
use.
angle.
And not, oh yes. And you see, I'm speaking with a magistrate, so I have to be very angled up tonight. No, I can understand if, let's say, teachers at the Antigua Grammar School and the Princess Margaret School, they're printing the material. That's a government public school. For private schools that are for profit, what happens there?
It's no difference.
What you mean there's no difference?
There's no
don't
difference.
pay at government, at public schools, but you pay at private schools. That's for profit.
You do pay taxes. That's what runs the school. So,
So
is a
you're
circumstance.
twisting on me.
It's not twisting. Once it's an educational purpose, there's a certain leeway with reference to the use of copyright. Once you're
Whether
informing,
it's for profit or not for profit.
whether it's for profit, in fact, you can use a certain amount of copyright as well, even if you're critiquing that material.
Yeah.
I am saying that this painting is horrible. I can show the painting and I can explain why I think this painting is horrible without being in violation necessarily. But everything, as I say, I mean, the Copyright Act is 150 pages long. It has several different sections. And the reason is because there are all these little niche circumstances where you must look into it as on a case-to-case, case-by-case basis.
Look on my case. So I'm a communications consultant. I
Right.
write speeches for my clients. They pay me to write their speeches. So if someone has an event and the person doesn't feel like writing a speech, hello, I can write that speech for you. Just tell me the context and you get a beautiful speech. That's my speech even though the person has paid?
No. It depends, hold on. It depends on the agreement that you and that
How is
person
it
has
you
made.
want the school, the private school?
Because if you and that person has agreed to a circumstance which is called a work for hire, in other words, you would not have written that speech or had the content to be able to write that speech had I not implored you to do so. If that is the case, then it's mine.
No. Sometimes they don't even give me a line, a word. I have to think about everything. All you tell me, you need a speech.
And
to
there's no
present.
agreement prior other than they're paying you some money to write this?
There's no agreement.
Then it's yours.
It's just write me a speech, please, because this is what I do. You don't provide a first draft or anything. So it's my work.
Yes, it is.
I'm copywriting all my speeches. Thank you for staying with us on the Paula Show. I'm now realizing that my speeches are mine.
All of them going to want agreements now.
We'll be right back after this commercial break. Stay with us, please. My IT representative asked me to post via Facebook quotes from time to time. They are my original quotes. I sit and I doodle and I come up with these, really intellectual quotes. They're mine.
Yes.
So if anybody else is using them, I can come to you and we can file a complaint.
Yes and no.
Your answers
See,
are
case by
scaring
case
me.
basis.
Isn't there
if you're-
anything that's
if you're-
standard in copyright issues?
Is there anything that's standard in life?
Yes.
Hardly anything.
Yes.
It all has to be.
Jesus is standard.
Jesus is standard. That is
He ain't
correct.
changing.
That is correct. But here's the situation with that circumstance that you just told me.
My quotes.
Your quotes. Your quotes can be seen as something akin to poetry. Your quotes are an artistic representation of you and your mind and your intellect, and so therefore they are yours. However, if you post them on a public forum, it allows for the agreement that you have with that public forum, Facebook, read the small print when you sign up, it allows other individuals to be able to use those things for
One
a
second,
non-commercial use.
Why y'all talking about yes, 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 and if I'm wrong? Y'all are reading the fine print? Huh? Okay. So you're saying anything I post to Facebook?
Not anything you post to Facebook. See, this is why Facebook and Google and all of them got into so much trouble
Exactly.
recently,
Yes.
because they were using people's posts and so forth
And
to
our
do a
private
chart
information.
and private information in order to have advertisers move forward with
Yes.
reference to you. If you notice, that agreement has changed and they have included those things.
'Cause
And
I
in
don't
circumstances, they sometimes ask you, can I use your stuff for advertisement, etc., etc. If you read the fine print, it's all in there.
Oh, that is so much. But hear this. I usually wonder, how is it I go to Amazon, I go to some place, I'm not purchasing anything, because I hate shopping online because there's so many predators waiting to get your credit card number. Call me a pessimist if you want, but I prefer to go to the store and buy my goods. I do not like online shopping. Why is it I'm looking at Google and I'm selecting a particular item, just looking at it, and the next thing I know, they're sending me complimentary items. Oh, I think you should look at this. And people who looked at this look like, is that wrong?
No, because you've agreed to it already.
Read the fine print.
Read the fine print.
Dance moves can be copyrighted.
Yes, choreography can definitely be
Also,
copyrighted.
choreography can be copyrighted.
Yes, it can be.
But anything about Paula, my quotes cannot be copyrighted.
No, I didn't say that.
Is this a personal thing
I didn't say
going on
that.
here tonight, Mr.
Your
Clark?
quotes can definitely be copyrighted. It's the
well-
manner in which you use them becomes the issue.
But dance moves, when you place them on Facebook, what?
Other people can you see is the manner of the use. Because they can use them and pass them around on social media. That's what it's called, social media. You're being social. However, if they decide to use it commercially,
That's
or
the problem.
even use it to bring people into another site where there is advertisement, where somebody else would benefit commercially,
Okay.
then it becomes a problem.
Becomes a problem.
See, it's the way in which you use it. For example, if I buy your CD, I can use that CD, I can copy that CD to play in my car, I can copy that CD to play at a party with my friends, I can do so. However, if I copy that CD in order to sell on the street, or if I copy that CD to play in my store for the enjoyment of my customers, etc., etc., gaining some kind of economic benefit.
If you play the music in your store,
Oh yes, there is a copyright royalty for supermarkets who play that background music, elevator music, literally, they should be paying royalties with reference to that. Just like a radio station would, just like a promoter of a
this is
FET would.
serious.
Yes.
I didn't know that. So when I go to my hairstylist and he's playing music, and then I have to write him a check. Greg, from now on, you need to pay the people their copyright because I pay you. I was going to talk about those people that are distributing the CDs and DVDs
Highly
on
legal.
Market Street. So why is the police not doing something about it? Why are you
Let's
not
say,
doing something
well,
about it?
I can't arrest, I can only enforce after they're arrested.
Mm.
Here's the thing. There does need to be a cultural shift in the Caribbean in general
Yes.
with reference to copyright. People don't see it as chattel. People don't see it as something that is owned. They don't see it as something that can be bought and sold. I can come and thief your bike and be arrested by the police right away. But you steal my song, which is far more valuable than a bike. And the circumstances are that you may not be charged for that. Why is a matter of education. We've just sent out invitation recently. That's the Antigua and Barbuda Intellectual Property and Commerce Office.
Right.
Have just sent out invitations to judges, to the DPP's office, to the Attorney General's office, to the Commissioner of Police, for them to attend an enforcement seminar and realize the scale of the problem with reference to copyright theft and infringement. It is nuts. We are in a situation now where there are gangs in Southeast Asia that used to sell heroin that now only deal in copyright infringement because it is
Imagine,
simply more profitable.
Because it works. So if, okay, I know people do this. They watch a particular show on TV, but they may not be home to watch the show. And they tape episodes and, oh, somebody's smiling, she does it. They tape episodes and episodes of the show to watch. That's a
And they can continue smiling because that is completely legal.
Legal or illegal?
Legal.
But if she starts to sell them, that's the problem.
There's where the problem
So
is.
it's the purpose, the intent.
It's the intent for the use of the copyright.
Protecting work and content locally might be easier than international protection.
Yes.
Why is that?
Because you're on the ground and you know that your material is being used one way or the other. I will give you an example. How do you protect a song being played throughout the world? What they have is a situation where what you first need to understand is copyright is not a registerable right. Copyright is not something that you go to our office and you register that song necessarily, because copyright ensues from the time the thing is fixed.
But when I put my C label, my C sign,
All
and it is
that
not automatically
says,
copyrighted?
yes, it is. That's my point. The point is it's automatically copyrighted, so it's not a registerable. Like copyright, like trademark, you would have to come to our office and
Right.
register that trademark. That is not how copyright operates. Copyright operates almost per se. You are in a situation where you have written what is on that document. That is yours. It came from your mind. That is, it's yours to use. If it is a circumstance that you have a song necessarily, you don't know who all is using it, who's playing it throughout the world. So there's circumstances where they have to have private non-profit agencies called collection and distribution agencies, which monitor not only the copyright within their country, but they have reciprocal agreements with other such agencies in different countries so that they all monitor and protect each other.
Yes, because in the US you have E-Watch.
Right.
Yeah.
And you have ASCAP, and you have BMI,
Right.
and you have CESAC. And here we have ECHO, which is...
Oh, you do have a
Oh,
monitoring
yes,
agency
the Eastern
here?
Caribbean Collective Organization for Music Right.
And it's active here in Antigua?
This is how it works. ECHO monitors and protects everything that happens within the Eastern Caribbean, whether it's their registered members or not. They will in turn pay out those royalties that need to be paid to the Americans and the Trinidadians to those persons, in return for which those organizations overseas will monitor your music for you. So when Burning Flames get paid in Trinidad, COT is the one that
It's only
monitors
Burning
it.
Flames. What about like the Paula show?
Claudette, the
It
Paula show, whatever the circumstance. Well,
Okay.
not the Paula show, because that's not music. But
So
you
that's what
understand
I'm
my
saying, it's just
circumstance.
music.
Well,
So
there's
what happened
one
to
for
us,
music,
TV.
there's one for music, and there's one for literary work. Those are the
Poetry,
only
books.
two that exist, such agencies that exist in the Eastern Caribbean. Several of the other larger developed countries have things like for broadcasting,
Oh, yes.
for
So when
other
are you
different
going to-
types
when are
of
you going to
rights.
expand to that
Well, it's
level?
not us to expand. And this is what people need to understand, specifically with reference to copyright. The government cannot be a monitor of copyright necessarily because the government is a user.
I know, we're coming to that in our next segment. Thank you
ABS
for
is a
sta-
user. And so therefore, it must be a private right. It must be a right established by organizations, usually non-profit organizations, that are monitored privately by a membership who elect a board, who vote on what they're supposed to do, vote on what royalties are supposed to happen, vote on how things are registered. So it puts the control in the hands of the creators themselves,
As opposed to the government.
as opposed to the state, which may not be the best arbiter of those kinds of laws, because the state itself could be a user and therefore would be monitoring itself, and you don't want that.
My learned magistrate.
Yes, madam.
Let's say I have a business in Antigua and I choose to call my business Macy's Antigua. Is that a problem?
No. See,
Macy's Antigua?
no.
Even though Macy's is a large department store in the US?
Here's the situation. That is not necessarily a violation with reference to the law. Unless Macy's either has a registered business or a registered trademark in Antigua and Barbuda. I can give you a practical example, and I can call names here because they both exist on the register. Payless.
Yes, yes.
Payless had existed in Antigua for some time before the actual Payless decided to move to Antigua. But he could receive that name and sell his shoes as he could because Payless at the time wasn't registered. When the authentic Payless, the well-known Payless, that's a better way, actually did come and register, they were registering as a regular local company, and we had to tell them, well, no, sorry.
The name exists.
The name exists. What they had to do to get around that was register through what is called the external company register. In which case, what you're registering as is not a new entity in Antigua, but as the entity that had previously existed overseas.
Okay.
And so they were able to then register as Payless, their proper
According
name,
to their global brand.
in brackets Antigua Limited. The brackets connoting the location.
Do you know that sometimes a designer, let's say Calvin Klein, and he has a particular shoe or he has a particular outfit, and let's say it's $200 for this outfit and it really looks good, and then you go into, you know, one of those stores, maybe in the Bronx or someplace. I'm talking New York. I'm a New York
Yeah, leave the
girl.
Bronx alone. I used to live in the Bronx. Bronx
Listen,
is nice.
I'm a
BX.
yeah, yes. I'm a New York girl, right? So my references are usually New York. And you're passing down the road and this little store and you see the outfit.
Yeah.
Same style. But I guess the difference would be the fabric. What's that called?
Remember in the
That's
beginning,
definitely duplication
Yeah,
of
yeah.
some sort.
that's infringement. Remember in the beginning
Oh,
I
it's an
spoke,
infringement?
yes, remember in the beginning I spoke about the several different types of industrial
Yes,
property.
yes.
One of those that I mentioned was industrial design. The best way I can explain it is one of the most famous industrial designs, which is the Coca-Cola bottle shape.
Ah, yeah.
Coca-Cola has registered that shape and has basically have exclusivity to that specific shape of bottle. If you notice, several other soda manufacturers have a bottle that kind of shaped like that. You kind of small in the
Yeah,
middle,
yeah.
or I think, but it's not exactly the same. And the reason is because even if the logo was torn off of the Coca-Cola bottle, and you saw
maintains
any
the
brown liquid in that kind of bottle, you would, when you put it to your head, as my grandmother does say, when you put them to your head, you assume that you're going to be tasting Coke.
Coca-Cola.
And if you do not, then it not only depletes the satisfaction of the customer, but it also then may, in the mind of the customer, diminish the value of that industrial property. And the same would flow with reference to the design of a dress. You see something from Versace, and Versace advertises it, etc., etc. They have registered that even before it hit the market, usually. And they do that because they want to be able to protect their brand and to protect their circumstance. If you're wearing something that is Versace-esque, right? And you see somebody walking with it and the person bent over and tear. You go say, what all? Versace not good. I was going buy that dress for how much?
That's not Versace.
Well,
That's imitation.
exactly. But you see, the thing is, they need to be able to protect their brand. There are circumstances, I remember circumstance a couple of years ago where some of the major stores that we had here, and some of the major stores that we had, that they have even in the States, in Miami, etc., etc., had a circumstance where I think it was Guest, or was it Louis Vuitton? Some one of them came and took a whole bunch of the bags and so forth off the racks that were there because they were realizing that the very stores, the very production places that were making those bags in Southeast Asia or wherever were
them.
opening it up at nighttime when everybody wasn't alert as to what was going on, creating the same bags and selling them to the same retailers as the actual article. So those kinds of things where an individual then mimics something like that, then becomes something that affects the way the brand is seen by the public, and so therefore must
They
have
must.
some kind of protection.
Patents are increasing across the globe. It is said that
Good.
in 2018, they passed a record-breaking 250,000 patents. And it seems as if Asia, that most of these patents are requested by businesses in Asia. So Asia seemed to be improving in their commercial sector.
Well, you see, patents is one of my favorite areas of intellectual
I
property.
wonder why.
Because patents involve, is more unique than you think. What a patent does, it is simply needs to be a new product that provides a solution to a problem that is in existence that can be used in a commercial or industrial manner. I like to give the example, I show people a wristband that projects onto your skin with lasers, a screen, and you can actually use your arm as a touch screen. And all the kids, they sit up and they go, wow, I want one of those, that's crazy. The next example I show them is a gentleman eating noodles with a chopstick, and he has a little electric fan connected to the chopsticks, and the fan is on, blowing air to cool down the noodles. And I say, which one of y'all could have come up with that? All of them say, well, I could come up with that. That's easy. I said, so then you can do a patent.
Therefore,
And
you
issue.
can't patent something to use personally.
You can, but it has to be able to be used commercially. And there was a gentleman that came into the office and he had some new kind of fish hook that did something or the other. I can't remember what it was that it did. But it was a very simple design. He had his little gag diagrams and so on. We were having issues with reference to the regulation, so he couldn't patent it right away. But the way it looked and the solution that it provided with reference to the fish not getting away or whatever the circumstance was very clever and so forth. And I sat and I spoke with this gentleman. This gentleman he left school in grade school. He never went to high school. But this was a man that could have a valid patent that could be registered and in accordance with the pattern cooperation treaty could be
And in
registered
about 50
anywhere else in the
years?
world.
50 years?
No.
Antigua?
Patent is smaller. And I tell you why. And it's very important that you said that. Because patent is only available, the protection for the patent, exclusivity for the patent, is only available for 20 years from the time you've patented it.
So by then I
So
should be able to recover.
So by then you're supposed to be able to recover the amounts of monies that you have and that you invest and make.
And all
Exactly.
of that. Yep.
The reason that is because unlike copyright, which is artistic, or trademark, which is renewable for a specific product, patent is technology. Patent is the way in which the world advances itself, but still allowing the individual to be able to receive economic benefit from their creation. Once you have registered a patent, it becomes a part of the public discussion. Anyone can come to the registry and say, pattern XYZ, I would like to see how they make it. And they can see it.
Seriously?
They cannot use it. They cannot benefit from it commercially. But there is a circumstance.
But they can improve on it.
Right, because there is a circumstance where if I improve on it and I have your permission to do so, I can then register my own patent on the improvement. Why? Because it's new. It creates a situation where you're solving a problem that exists and you can use it commercially.
And suppose
that is
you
all
make
that is
more money on
necessary.
the improvement
Well-
than my original product.
Well, you're giving me peace because you're using my patent to do it in the first place.
It is said that intellectual property has become difficult to protect since the internet.
You see me nodding profusely, right?
Yes.
Yeah. The internet has changed the face specifically of copyright in the sense that it is no longer a circumstance that you need to have the genuine article to be able to enjoy the aesthetic pleasure of that art. Now it is a situation where for example, publishers are now disappearing en masse, because it's not a situation where individuals need a specific individual with a specific network in order to get their stuff out there. Put it on social media, it's gone.
YouTube.
If it picks up, you have millions of people who are able to see it,
Yeah.
probably all at once. That did not exist when copyright was thought of. In the 17 and 1800s, where copyright was thought of, it was a bunch of individuals looking to try and protect their paintings, looking to try and create a situation where an individual in another country or an individual down the road cannot simply get my painting, copy it, do it line for line, and then sell it as their own. That has been changed by the dynamic, not only of the internet, but specifically social media, because where is the balance and where is the use and where is the intention with reference to the economics?
So how do we?
Because remember, you can copy it for your personal use. How do you classify personal use in social media? It's very difficult. It's very difficult.
So it can't be managed then?
It can be. There is one specific treaty, the Beijing Treaty, which speaks to manners in which it could be determined what is commercial and what is not with reference to the internet. We, however, are not signatories to that treaty. However, the new bill that we have presented to the Attorney General does take into consideration the terms and the provisions and the articles of that treaty. That is up to Cabinet and the Attorney General. It is a situation where the bill has been cooperated with the World Intellectual Property Organization. We had consultants come here. They had a fact-finding thing where they went around to the various stakeholders, et cetera, and we came up with a bill. We drafted basically a bill.
And you're satisfied with it?
I am satisfied with it. I personally, well, I'm only one man, but I personally am satisfied with the level of protection it gives, and yet the level of freedom that it gives to the individual and be able to...
Conundrum.
It sounds like a giant coming from the hills to crush the village. And if you look at intellectual property step by step, it's kind of very simple. You have to be able to protect the constitutional right to expression. You have to be able to protect the right to free speech and protect the right to freedom of the press. But at the same time, you have to ensure that individuals' ownership of their intellectual property is maintained. And so it's a balancing act.
Social media opens the doors to infringement of your trademarks and trade secrets, copyrights, and privacy rights. So businesses need to be more proactive.
Yes, they do, to protect their rights.
Yeah.
To protect their rights. That's why I was very keen to stress that a lot of the rights that we have in order to protect our intellectual property are not necessarily rights in the criminal arena, but are rights in the civil arena. And why individuals must take that next step to ensure that they protect their own rights by use of the civil courts.
It's costly.
It is in certain circumstances, but if you have a point, you need to move forward with reference to your point.
We're coming up on our last segment, but what I'm what I'm taking away from what you've discussed thus far is that we also have to pay attention to the fine prints on social media.
Not on social media. Pay attention, people, to the fine prints from everything. I used to write those contracts. Pay attention to everything. APUA contract, the insurance policy,
your credit cards,
your banks, your credit cards, an informed public. With reference to intellectual property, an informed public, but you have to do it. Is you and your to your benefit.
You guys have been reading the fine prints for everything, your credit card, everything, 3 and 4. You read the fine print, sir? You're shaking your head. Sometimes, you know, you're conducting business at a particular place and they say, sign. And I don't like doing that. So I say, but I have to read before I sign. But sometimes you have 4 pages.
Sit and read it.
Yeah.
I'm guilty of it too. Everybody is guilty of it as well. But
Become more informed.
you need to become more informed. All individuals need to become more informed about the reality of their
Because once we've
circumstances.
affixed those signatures,
Because once you've
that's
done
it.
that, our phrase caveat emptor, buyer beware. Once you've signed and you agreed, there's often acceptance and consideration. It's a done deal. Only if you were misled, and half the
I was about
time
to say maybe
you were
I
not.
was misled, I was not given. So what about if I wasn't given sufficient time
No.
to review the document?
No. Nobody give you specific time to do anything. It's you signing your signature on there. You have to make
So I
sure
have to pay attention.
that you are doing the correct thing with reference. That is why, in circumstances of copyright, where an individual is using something commercially, we don't even take oral contracts with reference to that. It must be in writing. Because there are circumstances that you have to understand that the individual needs to be aware of exactly what their circumstances are. And if you choose not to read the contract, that's your bad.
So read and sign. Oh boy.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for staying with us on the Paula Show. Wow. 4 pages.
I feel like I'm depressing you. I'm not.
You're not depressing me. I'm just realizing that I've signed sometimes in good faith, but it's not a good thing. Read the document. And if it takes all afternoon to read it, take all afternoon to read it and tell them you'll sign tomorrow.
Not if you're in the line in the bank in front of me, though.
You see, that's the problem. We'll be right back on the Paula Show. Stay with us, please. One report says that government cannot help to protect businesses from competition because employees are sometimes willing to sell information.
Yes, that is true. That is a worldwide fact.
But that's not fraud?
No, not if you do not have a non-competition clause within your contract of employment. If it is a circumstance that you do not have a confidentiality or a non-competition clause within,
but it's
the
an
only thing you can
expectation.
do with reference to that is fire the person.
But it's an expectation that if you're working for me, that you'd want to be confidential about my business.
That is true, and that is grounds for dismissal. However, unless you have protected yourself, for example, why do you think that Coca-Cola has not patented its formula, or Kentucky for that matter?
Because, like you said, after the patented period has expired, then someone can improve upon it.
I'm so proud.
Oh my gosh, clap for me!
And that is precisely the point. So what they basically do is they have confidentiality and non-competition contracts and trade secrets, which is different from patents, in order to ensure that they can maintain a circumstance where they're always going to profit from this formula.
Yes.
Kentucky does it, KFC does it, etc., etc. In fact, in those companies, there are usually only about 4 or 5 individuals that know the entire process.
Yes.
You know peace, he knows peace, and he knows that after I done my thing, I give it to you. You know after you done your thing, you give it to that person. But it's all not one big thing that individuals are simply able to pass. And those individuals will not go outside and carry that formula outside because the penalties with reference to it civilly are so large.
Intellectual property impacts our daily lives.
Everything.
In so many ways.
Everything. The shoes you wear, the car you drive, the pants you put on, the music you listen to, the toaster that you put your bread in, the movies that you watch, at work, the computer programs that you use. Intellectual property is indeed worldwide. Everything that we do has to deal with a product. And almost everything that has to deal with a product has some sort of intellectual property connected to it. Even our cultural symbols. I am now engaged in a discussion regionally to be able to protect by geographical indication the Antigua Black, for example, which some people in Norway wanted to register, by the way. Because another thing like geographically, for example, have you ever heard of champagne from California? You've seen in the things labeled California champagne or champagne from Italy? No such thing. It is not champagne unless it comes from the Champagne region of France. Grown with the specific grapes that those individuals, the monks that started at first.
All the champagnes that we have been
It is
consuming.
just sparkling wine. It is not champagne. If you've heard of mozzarella, I've seen lots of times, I see mozzarella cheese and you see made in Wisconsin. It must come from the mozzarella region in Italy, where mozzarella does something or the other is created.
So that's misleading.
Cheddar is a town in England which created those things. It's a region in England. If it is not registered, if it is not from that place, it is not the genuine article.
So nobody else should be able to register the black pineapple?
Nope. We sent slips down to Dominica the other day. They grew some lovely pineapples that taste very sweet and are larger than our black pineapple. Not the same thing.
Claim it.
Not the same thing. I still think ours is better, but that's a matter of opinion. But it's not the same. They cannot literally call it the Antigua Black. Do you know, if you grow Antigua Black anywhere else in Antigua, other than that Cades Bay region round south going round to Old Road, or one other place in Bethesda by Red Hill there, it is not an Antigua Black. Antigua Black need necessarily be not only grown in volcanic soil, but grown in a particular type of volcanic soil, and must have some sort of sea breeze. Of course, it has to be, because otherwise, you know, if you grow it on the other side of the hill in Bendels, you don't get Antigua Black.
You get Bendels Black.
We get something, but it's not Antigua Black. And this is the importance of intellectual property.
This is too technical.
It is not technical at all.
Complicated.
Ask a farmer. A farmer will tell you that if you grow it over there as opposed to over here, it don't taste the same. And it's the truth. If you grow Blue Mountain coffee anywhere other than the Blue Mountains, you don't get Blue Mountain coffee.
It has to come out of Jamaica.
It has to come out not only in Jamaica, but a specific region in Jamaica. And that is the importance of intellectual property, The ability to be able to register these things, the ability to be able to protect these things is fundamental to how we move in society with reference to our economics, how we move in society with reference to morals, the ability to be able to recognize individuals, and culturally. Culturally, the genre of law that protects the culture of a country the most is intellectual property. Without intellectual property, anybody would be able to do anything anywhere in the world and say it's theirs. Without these treaties that all these companies for their mutual countries for their mutual protection have been able to agree with each other that this is the minimum protection that we will give. You can give more if you want,
but this is the minimum.
But this is the minimum that we will all accept worldwide. If we did not have that, we would have chaos in the world.
And on that note, I want to thank you very much for bringing order to the Paula Show tonight. We are better learned about intellectual property because you came here tonight. I want to thank you very much.
I am happy and privileged that you had me. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Did he do a good job? I totally enjoyed tonight. Well, you're watching the Paula Show, and I know that you have stayed with us all night long, and we appreciated your company. Thank you for staying with us, and have a good evening. Goodbye.